Hello, I'm Dynast Amir.
So I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, look, I need to go on vacation somewhere. Where should I go? He said, go to Africa. And not only am I going to go, I'm going to explore a new country. So I went to Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Liberia, Namibia, Kenya, the Voodoo Festival in Ouida, Gambia, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. It's been a beautiful experience, just learning more about our culture, our indigenous culture. So Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. I'm in search of my roots. In finding that, I would experience my Uhuru, which is freedom.
Till next time, Dynast Amir, I'm out.
Peace, family. I hope all is well. I hope your Thursday is going well. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button as you enter the chat room. Please hit the like button. Also, make sure you share and make sure you subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. If you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, again, if you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, please go to searchforuhuru.com. Please go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. Again, please go to searchforuhuru.com and buy the documentary. I would greatly appreciate it. Tours, we are rolling to Sierra Leone here shortly in a couple months. Please go to Danfo. That's DANFO. .Africa, again, DANFO.Africa to learn more about our tours. Again, please go to Danfo. That is DANFO.Africa and come and join us. We're going to Sierra Leone in April for the citizenship ceremony swearing in. All right, so if you have your DNA results, African ancestry preferably, get at me. Come get your passport. Then we're rolling to Senegal in May for the Jazz Festival. We got 3 spots left. Senegal in May for the Jazz Festival. You want to enjoy the best food on the planet and some great music? Join us in Senegal for the Jazz Festival. And then we are rolling to Nigeria in August for the Osun Festival. Again, Nigeria in August for the Osun Festival. Come and join us in Nigeria for the Osun Festival. We'll love to have you all. Ebube should be joining us shortly. Let me message Ebube and tell him I sent the link. Okay, there we go. She said okay. Yeah, so Ebube should be coming on shortly. In fact, what we'll do, we'll jump to a quick commercial break, and let's see here. No elections in Biafra. Oh God. There's going to be an election Saturday, Alex, okay? Biafra or no Biafra, there's going to be an election in Nigeria on Saturday. So let's hit a quick commercial break. Ebube is going to come in and we'll be right back.
At the Okoli Law Group, we specialize in producing justice. If you or a loved one in the Atlanta metro area is facing serious criminal charges, then you need serious legal representation.
The Okoli Law Group is here for you. The Okoli Law Group is here for us.
The Okoli Law Group, serious legal representation.
This brand because first off, the products are quality. I have amazing hydration. You guys can see the shine. You guys can see the definition.
In honor of Black History Month, my books and ebook will be $2 off. Purchasing is available at www.saycarry.com. And you can also use my website to contact me regarding questions, comments, or to book speaking engagements. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We can all benefit from proverbs from our elders. Africa is the birthplace of human civilization and home to some of the most ancient wisdom on the planet. The continent of Africa is an extremely culturally rich region and home to over 2,000 languages, 3,000 ethnic groups, and numerous belief systems. The Book of African Proverbs and Wisdom, Volume 1, from author J.P. Martin, available on Amazon, is a compilation of over 100 ancient proverbs and words of wisdom from the continent of Africa. This must-read book provides a diverse and expansive collection of timeless, wise sayings and knowledge which have been collected from every region of Africa. This book is perfect for anyone interested in learning more about the African culture and expanding their knowledge of human experience. Order your copy right now on Amazon. The Book of African Proverbs and Wisdom, Volume 1, from author J.P. Martin. Go to Amazon.com and get your copy today.
All right, Ebube should be joining us shortly. I just resent him the link. So we're going to be discussing the most important election in Africa, in the past, I don't know, decade. That's the election. Nigerian election is today's topic. Personally, I would like for Peter Obi to win, but I think Atiku's going to win. I think Atiku's going to win, me personally. But, we're going to get the play-by-play, and the, deep dive from Ebube. Ebube is going to go into detail, and give his analysis on who he thinks is going to win and why. And, guys, we'll be on for probably an hour. So, we'll allow Ebube to give his analysis for about 30 minutes. Then we'll take a couple callers. Then we'll go ahead and log out. That is what we will do, you guys, as we wait for Ebube. Yeah, the election's this Saturday. In fact, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat while we wait for Ebube. If you guys want to call in and give me an idea of who you think will win, go ahead, click on that link. Link is in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. In fact, here goes Ebube. Ebube, what's up, brother?
Dynast, what's going on, man?
All is well. All is well. Oh, oops, hold on. Let me bring you back on here. Hold on 1 second. There we go. There we go.
Perfect. How's everything, man?
All is well, man. All is well. Go ahead and introduce yourself to people who might not know who you are.
All right. For those that don't know me, my name is Ebube Okoli. I'm a Nigerian-born, American-trained attorney and geopolitical analyst. I'm also the creative director of Up Close and Center, which is a channel here on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and go over there and subscribe. And while you're here at this particular channel, go ahead and hit the like button and go ahead and hit the share button And strap in your seatbelts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, so we got a big day, Ebube, on Saturday. 2 days away.
Yes, sir. Actually, less than a day away if you really look at it. Because today
Nigeria is already.
Nigeria is almost.
It's already Friday in Nigeria.
Well, it's election eve right now, you know. So it's a really, and then this is one of those presidential elections that's really pivotal,
right?
For a lot of reasons, for a lot of people.
All right, Ebube. So let's just jump into it, man. Atiku, Obi, and the Godfather of Lagos.
All right. So we also have Kwankwaso, who's also in there as well. But before we jump into the election,
go ahead.
I got something that I would like to discuss to give context as to why this election is important. So one of the things that we like to do, or we should start engaging in, is when we look at African countries currently, we have to understand that these are some of the oldest civilizations in the world now put into modern nations. And so it's always, when you see certain things, you can say, oh, I understand why this is happening, because this is maybe 3 historical empires put together, and there's a lot of that in the background. So if you could go ahead, I have a screen to share. Let me go ahead and get that going. All right, Dennis, tell me what you're looking at.
I'm about to share right now.
Sounds good.
You see it, or is the page still loading?
It looks like the page isn't loading. That's odd. Yeah, let me refresh it. Hopefully it loads right this time.
Nothing yet. Yeah, nothing yet.
Yeah, it still looks like it's loading. So here's what we can do. We can go ahead and get into it. I'll pull up the graphs and everything. All right, so did it pull up now?
No, it didn't.
Click refresh. I wonder why it's doing that.
I can't. It won't work on my end. I mean, do you see something on your end? Because on this, whatever's on your screen is on. That'll be displayed.
Yeah. No. You know what? Let me stop that and start it over.
Okay.
Right. That could be it. So go ahead and stop that.
Just stop.
All right. Perfect. Let me try it again. Give me about 10 seconds. Let me get that going right here. Hopefully it gives it to me. If not, we'll just proceed without it.
Okay. You there, Ebube?
Yes, I am. All right. So I'm just waiting for because I'm going to try it about 2 different ways, and if we can't get it on either way, then we can just proceed.
Okay.
But while I'm pulling it up, let me ask you a question. Who do you got your money on and why?
I want Peter Obi to win. But it's just the youth are behind Obi, but are they going to show up on Saturday? And from what I'm hearing, the youth who are behind Obi, a lot of them aren't registered to vote. That's the what I'm hearing on the streets.
Yeah, I've heard that too, but I've also heard the opposite. I heard that this is the first time that this many people have actually registered to vote.
Right.
And so the assumption is that the people that registered to vote are all of the young people who were initially disenfranchised and didn't necessarily believe that their votes counted. So we could see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just, so with that being said, I'm thinking Atiku's gonna win.
Atiku? Well, he's a popular option. He's a very popular option. He definitely has the experience. He was actually contesting for the president's seat back in when Abiola was there. So he's been in the game for quite some time. All right.
So Peter Obi ran on his ticket with him as his VP.
So Atiku has been running. Atiku has been running for quite some time. Quite some time he's been running.
Now, if Obi would have been like the flag bearer for the APC or the PDP, it might be different. I think Obi would have won. But we won't know this Saturday. We won't know this Saturday.
Yeah, we actually won't know until Saturday.
Yeah,
all right, Donna.
Anything can happen on Saturday.
All right, let me know if that's.
Let's see here. All right, it's pulling up.
Yeah, let me know if it's cooperating.
Oh, there we go. It's up.
All right, cool.
We got it.
So what are you saying?
Prepare by up close and center analysis of the upcoming.
Perfect. All right, perfect.
Election.
There we go. All right, let's get right into it. Let's take a look at what we have. All right, so what we have to understand about Nigeria that makes it different from some other places is that Nigeria is a place made up of many civilizations that come from ancient kingdoms. And these ancient kingdoms all interact with each other in different ways. And if we take a look here, we see a nation that looks like a puzzle piece with different ethnicities and different groups. And so this is what gives Nigeria its strength. This is the secret to Nigeria's strength, is that there are so many different types of people that live within the borders that can come up with so many different solutions to so many different problems if properly utilized. All right, so what we're going to do is first we're going to talk about Bornu Canaan. Bornu Canaan is the oldest outside of the Nok culture, is the oldest recorded civilization, empire, if you will, in Nigeria. It was around the Lake Chad area. It stretched all the way to Libya, all the way to Sudan. Today, this is what most would call Bornu State. But Bornu State was actually one of the most powerful countries or states in Africa, one of the most powerful empires, and it was one of the most long-lasting. It lasted from around 700 AD all the way up until 1893 in one form or the other. Now, one of their secrets to success was the fact that they domesticated the horse. They were a very sophisticated people. They domesticated the horse and they had guns early. They were one of the few African empires that made sure that they had guns early. Another thing is they had knights, and these knights would have heavy chainmail. So they had horsemen and they had guns. That was one of the things that made them last so long. They were one of the African empires that actually worried about military, and they had one of the strongest militaries at that time in the world. So there's no coincidence between military power and being able to stay around. Many African nations in the present day can learn a lot from this particular empire. So they had a good run, a very organized system of governance. They were ruled by various sheikhs. And after that, we had the Hausa states in the Sokoto Caliphate. They came around 828 AD and lasted until 1903 AD. So they lasted a very long time, over 1,000 years, basically. They had very large cities. At one point, Kano, Nigeria was one of the largest cities in the world. This is smack dab in the Hausa states, and eventually would become one of the focal points of the Sokoto Caliphate. The Hausa states were powerful, and we see here they were in between Songhai and Bornu Kingdom. So they flourished off of that trade. They became a very sophisticated people. They had a very intricate form of governance. They were a very high cultured people. They were people that they made their mark, and they made a distinctive mark, and they're people of a great history. Now, eventually what would happen is it would become the Sokoto Caliphate under Usman Dan Fodio. Usman Dan Fodio was many things to many people, but essentially he created a jihadi state called the Sokoto Caliphate, which was in essence the successor to the Hausa states. He was able to,
where did he come from? Did he come from Niger or Senegal? Like, where did he come from?
Well, the thing is, he was a Fulani person, and at that time, Fulani people, they're basically ubiquitous to everywhere in West Africa. And West Africa was very much connected, and this is what helped many of the Fulani people who are typically nomadic move around. And so when they would move around, for example, Usman Dan Fodio, he would also write books and write literature, and he would change the culture that he sat in with his writings. So this is an example of one of Usman Dan Fodio's writings, and he would write in Arabic, he would write in Hausa, and he'd write in Fulfulde, which is the Fulani language. Now, here's an actual geographical spread of what the empire actually looked like. You can see it's very vast. It stretched all the way almost to Mali, all the way to almost the Central African Republic. And if you look at it from a geographical perspective, this particular landmass takes up the most geographical space in Nigeria. Next in the south, we have the Uri Empire, which came 964 AD to 1902 AD. And this encompassed what we would call the Igbo land at its apex. Now, at its apex, it was very sophisticated, scientifically and or otherwise. One of the scientific breakthroughs was demonstrated through the bronze workings found in Ebube Okoli. And one of the really interesting things about this is that iron smelting, iron technology, iron working, different things of that nature was much more advanced in this part of Africa at this particular time in the world than it was even in Europe. So this was over 1,000 years ago. This is what was being created in Igbo land. Now, one of the amazing things about this that you have to notice is that there are beads on this 1,000-year-old object found in ancient Igbo land. One of the cool things about it is those beads have been determined to have come from Egypt. So that shows you that there was a synergy and or a trade between the people of early Eastern Nigeria and ancient Egypt. Here's another example of a bowl used by ancient Igbos over 1,000 years ago. So if you look at the sophistication in this, you realize that these weren't primitive people living in Nigeria. These were very sophisticated people living in Nigeria. And so another thing about the people of southeastern Nigeria is that they fought the British longer than any other group and accounted for more British fatalities than any other group. And the fighting of the British lasted for decades. So they were a thorn in the side of the British people who came to colonize them. Many people have this myth that Africans just laid down and allowed themselves to be colonized. That was far from the case. Now we have ancient Benin. Ancient Benin, it came in 1180 AD and lasted until 1897 AD. And now you can see a lot of these dates are similar, 1897, 1902, 1903, because what happened is all of these empires were essentially truncated and turned into Nigeria in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So that's why you keep seeing that date reoccur. Now, Benin was another very advanced, sophisticated civilization. They had also domesticated the horse, which was a big deal. There was a time when they believed that Africans had never domesticated the horse. It's good that we're past that fact, and it's a scientific fact at this point in time. They had very well manicured cities, very well structured cities. If you understand history, you know that at one point Benin City was more developed than London. Benin City at one point had wide boulevards and had streetlights every 10 feet, and the streetlights were ran by oil, and every night someone would come by and put out the streetlights when the time was right. At the time, there weren't even streetlights in Britain. So that should tell you how advanced these Africans were that became Nigerians. Moreover,
and can you expand on what happened to Benin City?
Well, what happened is that there was a dynasty that ruled the Benin Empire, and they were like the Igbos in a lot of ways. They were a headache to the British because they just didn't believe that the British should be able to rule them, and they were warrior people when they needed to be. They fiercely guarded their freedom. So they fought the British for a long time. And so what the British did is the British said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to try and figure out who in the royal family doesn't like each other, stir up conflict between them. And once they fought internally enough to weaken themselves with the weapons that we're going to supply them, then we'll just come in with bigger weapons and take everything over. So unfortunately, the Benin Empire fell for that particular trick played on them by the outsiders. There were dynastic struggles within the royal family, and that greatly contributed to accelerating the fall of the kingdom. The British needed that to happen because the Benin Empire controlled much of the economy in southern Nigeria. And the British wanted that, so they had to remove the Benin Empire. Now, we see here, this highlights the dynastic struggles because you would see there would be these very large families, and someone might be your brother, but they're maybe your half brother, and they might not feel loyalty to you, and yada, yada, yada. And you'd look at a royal family, and a royal family would have, 50 people in it. And so if you realize that if I can just turn five of these people against their own family, equip them with weapons, I can ferment a rebellion or a civil war at best. Also, too, one thing to note, the reason why Benin was so successful is because they had walls, the Great Walls of Benin, that were 4 times longer than the Great Walls of China. They so frustrated the British that when the British took over, they destroyed much of Benin City and much of the walls, till today, where most people don't even know that these walls exist, which is a shame. All right, now last but not least, we have ancient Oyo, which came about 1500 AD and lasted until about 1837. Oyo was great in the fact that they sat in a very strategic position geographically. They were also a very well-structured, well-ordered people. They were able to spread over a large geographical area because they used the horse, and they had domesticated the horse for war. And they also had very serious generals. In ancient Oyo, if you were a general and you lost an important war, it was expected that you would take yourself out in many instances. So many of the generals took campaigns and wars very seriously, because if you didn't win, your fate was sealed even if you survived the battle. And so there's a picture of even till today, when the British came and they were taking pictures in early colonialist days, they were able to still capture the glory of the old empire and in what they were doing with domestication of the horse. So now I bring it back to this because, to an extent, if you understand all these great empires went into Nigeria, now some people are saying, well, what's the issue, right? Why isn't Nigeria great again? And that's really what the problem is that Nigeria hasn't fully lived up to its potential. Sure, in Africa, Nigeria is very competitive as an African nation. In fact, some can even argue that Nigeria is an African superpower. However, Nigeria is at the point where it should be competing globally as a superpower as opposed to merely competing continentally. So we go ahead and we get into what we were talking about earlier. Now, this is one of the elections where we have a great deal of people who have registered to vote. and we see the 6 geopolitical regions. Nigeria is broken up by 6 geopolitical regions. In the Northeast, you have about 12.5. The Northwest, you have about 12.2 million. The North Central, 15.3 million. The Southeast, 10.9 million. The South-South, 10.4 million. The Southwest, 17.9 million. So now this is one of those elections where you have a lot of people who have been registered to vote in the election. And so you have about just under 93 million voters, 93.4 to be exact. And then we also see the distribution of polling units. There's over 176,000 polling units in Nigeria. Lagos having about 13,000, followed by Kano with about 11,000, followed by Kaduna with 8,000, Katsina with 6,000, and then River State with another 6,000, and lastly Anambra with 5.7 thousand. Those round out the largest voting blocks, if you will, and in regards to distribution of polling materials. Now, one of the things that might heavily influence this election is the presence of money. And believe it or not, this is a picture of what was allegedly inside of a politician's house. And this is just the focus of it. There were other currencies there too. Now, it's alleged that certain political candidates took great deals of money out of the government coffers and stashed them away in order to buy votes from people. So it's alleged that there were primaries, and in those primaries for the party tickets, many claim that delegates were bought off and their delegate vote was purchased, and that these same political candidates plan to buy the populace's votes and essentially corrupt the system. So there are billions, almost trillions of naira that were out of the system. So the central bank government or governor, at the direction of Muhammadu Buhari, went ahead and redesigned the naira notes. And basically, this was challenged at the Supreme Court. There's been many challenges. There's been many governors stating that they're not going to adhere to the new naira regime put by President Muhammadu Buhari. Some are alleging that this was aimed at certain political candidates. However, those political candidates and those who support certain political candidates have rebuffed this by highlighting that the policy is harming the common man more than it ever will the politicians. So there are two sides to this argument. But here, the old naira and the new naira, the only thing that's still available from the old naira to use is the 200 naira note. The government actually went back on that policy in order to potentially alleviate suffering that was alleged to be happening to the masses, if you will. But with the new naira, what has happened is that if you're circulating old notes, it's going to make it very difficult for you to buy people's votes with old notes. And what was assumed is that these people who have hoarded bulk sums of money, that have taken almost 30 to 40% of the naira out of circulation, those people allegedly took it in 500 note denominations and 1,000 note denominations. So what Buhari has decided is that in order to make this a fair election, the best thing to do is to make sure that people who allegedly stored away a lot of money can't use that money, and they have to run on their popularity. I believe that Muhammadu Buhari believes that because he won on popularity, according to him, that's what he most likely believes, is that it was his popularity that took him to the presidency. He believes that that should be the way for everybody else. And so that's what the naira policy has done. And it looks like the old notes are going to be out, even with all of the fighting at the Supreme Court. Now, some of the candidates have weighed in. I Alhaji Atiku Abubakar said there shouldn't be any extension. He actually stated that he's okay. He stated that he doesn't plan to buy votes. These are his statements. Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu stated that it should be done to alleviate, that an extension should be done to alleviate the suffering of Nigerians. So he's taking the other side of the coin. He's saying that it's not us politicians who are suffering, it's the masses. And we need to make sure that the masses have enough currency to be able to transact business. And to an extent, he is correct. There have been difficulties on the masses. But with Pito B, he stated that he's in support of the policy and that the deadline shouldn't be extended. So even with these three candidates, we see that they differ on key issues. Now, the last time we spoke, this was the projected map of forerunners. Now, things could potentially change. One moment, please.
Go ahead, take your time. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button again, please. Hit that like button. Again, please hit the like button as you enter the chat. That is your price for admission to get this. This is better than Channels TV and, I don't know, the other network.
And NTA.
Yeah. This right here, nobody breaks it down like Ebube. It gives you the detailed analysis like Ebube. You're not going to get this on Nigeria TV. All right, go ahead.
But that's the good thing. That's why the internet is here. So people in Nigeria, if they want to bypass some of the agenda-driven media, they can go ahead and tune into the internet. And most people at a certain age, below, I think, 42, many of them get their their news through the internet rather than through traditional media sources and TV included. But we see that this is the original map of what was predicted. And here, the problem is that there's really not a clear
one second. And guys, nothing against Channels TV. I like Channels TV. That's actually
I love Channels TV. Channels TV is great.
That and I think is Arise TV.
Arise News is also great. Shout outs to Arise. Shout outs to Channels TV. Right. Shout outs to even Channel O. Shout outs to NTA. Shout outs to NN24. I don't know if that's around anymore, but shout out to NN24. And also shout outs to Ray Power FM. Ray Power FM. I used to have a radio show on Ray Power FM back almost 10 years ago when I was living in Abuja. So shout outs to Ray Power FM. All right, now this was the original map of Nigeria, the electoral, and we look at it. What we noticed is that this is a really split map with no clear majority, right? So this is something that could potentially lead to a runoff. And already there's been predictions and calculations of what might happen if there's a runoff. Who might win if there's a runoff? Who might lose if there's a runoff? Now, in a runoff situation, whenever you just pick two people, depending on the two people you pick, there could be very different outcomes. So, for example, let's say by a fluke of nature, Kwankwaso and Atiku end up being the number one and number two, but it's too close to call. And there's a runoff election between Kwankwaso and Atiku. That's something most people probably never predicted, and that would change the dynamics. All of a sudden, people who might not have ever considered either of the two will now have to make a decision between the two in a very short amount of time. Moreover, they'd be competing for the same hometown, so none of them would have a clear hometown advantage, being that they're both from the north, unless you go region, but that would be a different analysis. Same thing if Pito B and Tinubu take number 1 and 2, but it's too close for any of them to have the presidency, so there's a runoff. So now the question is, what between Pito B and Tinubu, who's actually more popular? Who do people believe in? Who would actually win? Let's say the runoff is between Kwankwaso and Tinubu, or Atiku and Tinubu, or Atiku and Pito B, former running mates. Will it turn into a North-South thing? Will the North unite for Atiku? Will the South unite for Obi? These are the things that it's hard to predict because there are just so many variables, which make it even more interesting. Now, there was a poll done by Bloomberg, and there's a lot of foreign organizations. The thing is, Dynast, I don't know if you remember the Lakers when they had Gary Payton and Karl Malone.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Exactly. And the thing is, they had 4, potentially 5 Hall of Famers starting. They had Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, Rick Fox, Gary Payton, and Karl Malone.
And they were coming on that team too.
Who?
Mitch Richmond.
He might have been. They had a stacked squad. It was the first real super team, a deliberate team set up to win a championship. Now, on paper, they should have won everything, right? But they ended up getting a loss handed to them, even though on paper they should have defeated everybody in the NBA. In a lot of ways, Nigeria is like that. You have the Ori Empire, you have Bornu Kingdom, you have the Oyo Empire, you have ancient Benin, you have the Sokoto Caliphate, you have all these great empires put together. And if this was purely based on a mathematical equation, that should be one of the greatest nations on earth. And then you add in that their soil per inch is some of the most expensive in regards to natural resources. So you have all these natural resources under the feet of all these great empires put together in one nation. You actually have something that should and could be greater than the European Union on paper. And that's the potential issue, or that's something that you can make an analogy to, is that on paper, Nigeria should be a top 3 economy. Nigeria should be a manufacturing hub. Nigeria should be spearheading the African army. Nigeria should be putting Africa in such a position that anywhere you see an African traveling with an African passport, you make sure you treat that person extra nice because you don't want problems with the Africans. That's where Nigeria should be. So you have a lot of foreign organizations and a lot of organizations general that are just interested in the potentials of Nigeria, Bloomberg being one of them. So from time to time, they'll get interested in the politics because they understand that the only thing truly holding Nigeria back is that we haven't gotten it right politically. We haven't gotten the people who can truly get us to where we need to be in office. That's the only real problem. There's no natural disasters. There's billions of trillions of dollars worth of resources. And then you have historically powerful empires who knew how to historically be powerful. So if these people were so powerful in the past and they understood that, the question is now what changed? And when Nigeria gets it right, Africa will get it right. So we look at Bloomberg's poll, and there's a lot of foreign organizations that have done polls. But most Nigerians, 41%, are concerned with the economy and jobs. 31% are concerned in a reduction of corruption. And another 16% are focused on national security. Now, I'll say really it's 19% because national security and crime, to an extent, falls all under security. So almost 20% security, 30% corruption, 40% economy. So 40 plus 30 is 70 plus 20 is 90. 90% of the people are really worried about 3 main issues: national security and crime, corruption, and then the economy and having a job. So Nigerians, when they're going to the polls, this is one of the few times where a lot of issues have really dominated the political discourse, which is a good thing. It means the democracy is maturing. All right, now in another poll conducted by Qualcomm Research, we see the age distribution. They asked, I believe, thousands and thousands of people. And no surprise, ages 18 through 34 is almost 15%. 35 through 49 is almost 40%. And that basically gives you a snapshot into the demographics of Nigeria. So one of the benefits is that while many nations across the world are losing population, nations like Japan, I'm also working on a documentary on Japan, comparing their population loss and the causes and effects and what Africa can learn from that. That'll be my next documentary on Up Close and Center. So if you're not already subscribed to Up Close and Center, make sure you go there and subscribe. Also, make sure you're subscribed here and hit that like button, and we'll go ahead and proceed. So now, in the geographical regions, the good thing is that this poll, they contacted people from all geographical regions. They contacted 25% from the Northwest, 20% from the Southwest, 16% from the North Central, 14% from the Northeast, 13% from the South, and 12% from the Southeast. About 45% of the respondents lived in rural areas, 30% in urban, and another 30% in semi-urban, which is more like suburban, is what we'd call suburban. All right, now among all of these voters, the interesting thing is that when it came to APC, 15% of the voters stated that they would be voting for APC. Almost 19% of the voters stated that they would be voting for PDP. 10% of the voters stated they would be voting for NPP. And 52.8% stated that they would be voting for LP, which is actually a big surprise, because if you would have asked me 8 months ago about the Labour Party, I would have had very little to say, and I would have honestly believed that the only way to win presidency in Nigeria was to be in the ruling party. And for a long time, that was just the truth. So Nigeria has had certain things that have happened over the history of its recent democracy that have been good things, regardless of what side you're on. So, for example, President Goodluck Jonathan losing and there not being a war in Nigeria and handing over peacefully was one of the best things to happen for democracy. So Buhari's emergence, regardless of what you think of the actual presidency, Buhari's emergence was good for democracy because it set the template that the ruling party can lose and there not be a war. And you have to remember that in Africa, the ruling party controls the military, controls the people creating the election, controls the funds for the election, controls the body that's going to count the votes, controls the body that's going to announce the votes, and then also potentially could control the courts that might hear any contention or challenges to the vote counting. So what we have is a situation when the ruling party loses, it means that either it was a free and fair election or that the ruling party allowed the opposition to simply take the election. But in either event, that was a good thing for democracy. Now, what I'll say here is that if Peter Obi actually wins in Nigeria, that'll be the best thing for democracy, because it'll show Nigerians that you don't have to be relegated to leaders from these parties that some have alleged are corrupt parties. Now, that would mean that Nigerians can completely choose a candidate of their liking, which means that the people now have the power. And if the people now have the power, that means that the people will be able to get what they want. So a Peter Obi victory, Peter Obi actually winning, would be a good thing for democracy. And an even better thing for democracy would be that either Peter Obi performs or he's gone in 4 years. Because that will make anybody who runs for president sit up and say, I have to perform. So the people can take back the power. That would be the best thing for Nigerian democracy. All right, here's a distribution of ages. Among the 18 to 34, 34 to 49 age group, Peter Obi clearly is holding sway. So it seems that P2B's base are the younger people of Nigeria, which means that if the youth truly get involved and get active in politics and they get off of social media and actually get into a polling unit, they could potentially be a force to deal with. When we look at how women are voting, women across Nigeria, 53.4% in this particular poll, stated that they'd be voting for the Labour Party. Similar to men. All right, so what we have to note here is that this is in a perfect situation, Labour Party would win. However, we know that elections are far from perfect in Nigeria. So, for example, you have allegations that particular political candidates are distributing old Naira notes. And they're distributing those old Naira notes. And in distributing those old Naira notes, they're distributing them with the promise that, hey, if I win, you'll be able to take these Naira notes and I'll cancel the policy that created the new Naira notes, and you'll be able to use the old Naira notes. So you have some of that going on. So you may still have vote buying even though the currency was changed. So in a traditional sense, without there being any type of disruptions, it's anticipated that the people's will be done. However, there's nothing to guarantee that, there's not going to be any manipulation, any intimidation, anything of that nature. But, this all, we still have to wait and see how everything pans out.
You ready for some callers, Ebube?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. One man went, I can't read your screen name, your profile name, but you got to turn your camera on before I let you on, so I could tell if you're trolling or not.
Definitely, the less trolls, the better.
Right, but links in the chat room, because I don't know who you are. All right, you can turn your camera back off. If you want to. Okay, there we go.
But some people are going around.
That's just a weird ass avatar image. So
yeah, no, it's actually an NFT. It's a non-fungible.
Oh, it's NFT. Okay, we got to talk about NFTs. That's what I just launched some NFT. I just launched NFTs for my for Donfo. So yeah.
All right.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Is it on OpenSea yet?
It's not. All my NFTs are on OpenSea. Look up Dynasty Mir.
All right, brilliant. Well done. I'll look it up. But really, to your guest, excellent presentation. A round of applause from me. It's just the way it was sequenced and structured, a real delight to listen to. So a real delight to listen to, and a really good breakdown of the Nigerian trajectory to where we landed. So if I can just a few comments on some of the spaces that you talked us through. So you were talking about the great empires that come together to form Nigeria. And you were saying that for those great empires to come together to form Nigeria, then that should be a recipe for a great nation that should be really one of the leading nations in the world. But I've also had thought along those lines. But I think, pardon me, but I think in the direct opposite. I think it's exactly because those great empires are the composition of Nigeria. That is why we're not getting it right. So if you try to imagine a country made up of the French, the German, the English, and the Chinese coming together to form one country, that country will be in perpetual flux. And that is what we're seeing with Nigeria. It's a battle for supremacy and somewhat of a tribal one as well. I think those great nations making up Nigeria is the greatest hurdle that we have to overcome. But that process is ongoing, but it's taking a lot longer than it should take. So yes, identify with what you said, but I see it somewhat in an opposite direction. And then
So
you also,
if I heard you clear, you're essentially saying that that having that many powerful nations, that many juggernauts in one place, is actually a hindrance as opposed to being a good thing.
yeah, you cited the example yourself as of an all-star. I don't follow American sport, of course, but you cited an example of an all-star team, and because there were so many stars within that team, it cannibalized itself. So a country like Nigeria, for it to really work, you don't need more than two, maybe major ethnic empires within that composition. Like you said, the Borno Empire, the Borno Empire, a history that goes deep, that stretches all the way through the Sahels, through the North Africa, into the Middle East and back. And you're talking about the Oyo Empire, one of the most structured societies that the world has ever seen. They have an Oyo Mese Council. So they had a governmental structure that was so structured, one of the best in the world.
And their warriors were feared throughout West Africa as well.
Yes, of course they were feared around the world. It was the you're talking about the Bashorun Gas, you're talking about the Areono Kakanfos, you're talking about so if you look at the power and the potency of the Oyo Empire, but then that is almost rivaled by the power and potency of the Benin Empire. And then if you so it's just the mix is too rich for it to form a nation. That's just my contention. Is to maybe we will get it right if we ever all buy into the concept of Nigeria, then we can get it right. But I don't think we've yet bought into the concept of Nigeria. I think the people from the Borno Empire, they see themselves primarily first. This is just my thoughts. They see themselves primarily first as people of that. Then within this mix now that they are calling Nigeria, and I think that subsists with all of the groupings. The Southeastern, as you know, the narrative there. The Yoruba people, you know, the narrative there. So I'm not quite sure how fully bought into the Nigerian project everybody is. If everybody buys into that Nigerian project, then I think this greatness that
when you say buy into the Nigerian project, what exactly does that mean?
I think and this are just my thoughts. I think a lot of these ethnic nations that make up the composition of Nigeria just see Nigeria as a vehicle to which to write to whichever destination they're embarked on. So, for instance, I'll submit that the Northerners, they see themselves as of that ethnic nation first before they see themselves as Nigerians. And I think a lot of the ethnic compositions of Nigeria see themselves in that ethnic composition first before they see themselves as Nigerians. Let's take, for instance, where you are in America. Americans see themselves primarily as Americans before anything else. So to get into that mindset, it's the first hurdle and really the most important hurdle. These are just my personal views that I think the Nigerian space has to surmount.
What do we need to do to get into that mind frame?
I think it's an orientation thing. I've always thought that we should really have a ministry dedicated exclusively to orientation and nationhood, so that they then.
What about NYSC?
No, that's just for youth corpus, isn't it? An excellent idea, but a ministry dedicated entirely and exclusively to the orientation. It's not even a reorientation because the orientation is not there in the first instance. So a ministry dedicated to the orientation of the concept of and we all also have to buy into what being Nigerian actually means, because being Nigerian means different things to different sectors of the country. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. But if you permit me to go into that space where you were talking about the politics, and you were talking about pathways to the presidency, and one of the spaces you landed on with your graph, all this 50%. I'm not quite sure where you got that from. Those graphs that you were telling us that amongst the youth, Peter Obi had an abundance of in excess of half of them, and amongst the women, he had an abundance in excess of half of them. and all of that narrative. So that is a narrative that has been in the political landscape for pretty much the journey of this election. But I'm not sure that I would give that much veracity to that. I'm not sure I would give that much veracity to that, because that sounds more of a southern narrative than anything else. I'm not entirely sure that the youth in Borno, which you mentioned, or in Sokoto or Kebbi or Gombe, I'm not sure that they even have any concept of who Peter Obi is, never mind aligning themselves with any prospect that he brings. And I'm not also sure that he's a vehicle for the change that a lot of people, and you even alluded to that. I'm not sure that it's the vehicle for any form of change that the country really needs, because it's just a lighter form of the status quo. It's still a status quo space. Still all of the allegations and all of the spaces that we're looking to move away from as a nation are still all vested in Peter Obi. You're talking about corruption, you're talking about maladministration, all of these things still elements of our allegations against Peter Obi. So I'm not sure if it's a deviation from the norm. If you want to deviate from the norm, then we want to be heading towards people like Showore, who is a complete left field outsider. But really, that should be the direction of travel of the country. But in terms of how the elections will pan out, you were talking about free and fair election, and how if money is removed from the politics, that might create a more level playing field as just for a true picture of what the country wants. And that's fine. But I'm not sure.
I didn't say that in particular. What I said is that there are people that, well, Muhammadu Buhari, for example, you have to remember that he was president in 83, and in 83 was, I think, maybe September, November. He did the same thing. He had the borders closed and he changed the currency. Remember? I'm not sure how old you are, but
yeah, I do remember. Sadly, I do. Yeah, but carry on. Yeah.
During that time, you remember he changed the currency because of what he perceived to be people hoarding currency. Remember the whole people are hoarding currency and manipulating the, there was a whole thing about that. So when he came back here presently, in his mind, in order to have a free and fair election, because information came to him that people were hoarding currency, he made a policy decision and implemented it through the central bank. Now, whether or not that's going to work, we don't know. And already there are people who are allegedly still distributing the old notes and saying, don't worry, when I'm president, it won't matter what this president is saying. So I didn't say that it was going to. I said that this is one of the driving factors behind why this action was done by this president, even though there are a lot of people that are struggling right now, right? It was done because there's 30% of the currency is alleged to be out of circulation. So what that policy was designed to do was to curb what the president, through the central bank, perceives to be a way to scuttle free and fair election. I didn't say it was going to work for sure. I just stated that this is what's being alleged. But
yeah, no. But let's do this. Let me ask you this, and then we're going to pass it to Alex. Who do you project to win the election on Saturday?
Is that to me?
Yes.
Well, I don't want to. All right, let me just go straight to the question. From all of the permutations that everybody has run, the only real pathway shows an APC victory. But then, of course, the election, maybe there might well be elements of surprise. But there is nothing really that suggests anything outside of an APC victory.
So Tinubu.
Yeah, well, essentially, that's what all the figures show.
Okay. All right, we appreciate you calling in. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, how's it going? I just had a quick question for Ebube.
What's going on, brother?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Life is good. You just count your blessings every day.
Gotcha. All right. So my question is, how is the movement in Biafra going to affect the elections? Because I know right now there is like a large thing where they're saying that they don't want any elections in their land right now, because they don't feel like they're being represented by the government, and they're like making a push for their own sovereignty, and basically the end goal is independence for them. So right now, for this election, they're tearing down like uh election places, tearing down election boards, threatening like election people not to go to towns or cities where elections are being held. So how is that going to affect the overall election?
Okay. Well, you're probably speaking about. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what happened today with Simon Ekpa and everything being detained by the Finnish police. Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, he actually got detained. Okay, that must be like
Yeah.
new.
Yeah,
That
happened
must be
this
like
morning.
breaking news.
Yeah, this morning. So it's
That's pretty wild, but I'm not surprised in a way.
well, to an extent, it's not surprising. If you listen to the rhetoric, it's it's something that's excuse me, to an extent, somewhat inflammatory. And if you have problems with that type of rhetoric, you're going to want to take action. So, one second. Let me have a. Now, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is this. You use the pronoun, you said they. They don't want an election. The first thing we have to do is define they. Who is they? How large is that group of they? Is that they a large group or is it a small group?
I would say certain factions in IPOB.
Yeah, and so certainly I doubt that their membership is more than 2% of this whole population. Now, there's a lot of people that are fed up with Nigeria, but there's not a lot of people who are ready to take up arms against the Nigerian state. That's just the reality. You have people in every geopolitical zone in Nigeria that are fed up with the federal government. If you take a poll between who's more popular between Suya and the federal government, Suya might just win, right? Everybody loves Suya. And it's very rare you find somebody who just loves the federal government, and that's a problem that the federal government needs to work on and address. Now, the problem in the Southeast that will lead to people saying it'd be best to just, quit this team. You got to remember, Nigeria is an all-star team. You got 5 or 6 all-star ancient empires put into one place. Now, if someone says I want to quit the team, I think I'd be better going solo, or I want to quit the band. You now have to ask, okay, what is this person's discrepancies with being in the band, and can we fix them? Because if you truly believe that we're stronger together, you have to take action and steps to make sure that anyone who's in here shares that same ideology. And if they don't share it, you have to convince them as to why they should share it. It's not anything that you can militarily force someone to believe. It's like a marriage. If you have a girlfriend or a wife and you've tried, but it's just not working, and you decide to break up, and you tell that person, and then they attack you physically, even if they subdue you and you can't move, and they're like, you can't leave this relationship because I'm not going to let you leave this house. Yeah, you're a captive, but they're a captive too. Both of you aren't going anywhere. Both of you aren't going to progress in life, focusing on stopping somebody. The better thing to do would be to convince the people and say, hey, look, still have hope in the country. When there's lawlessness and there's anarchy, people say, you know what? I don't need the state. I'll resort back to tribe. And any other tribes that want to come with me, we'll go do our own thing. So it doesn't seem as if the number of people who could potentially disrupt an election are greater than the number of people who want to take part in the election. You have to remember that this is a record number of people that we have registered to vote. Many of them are youths, many in the Southeast, and the Southeast has historically had voter apathy. And this is the first time where you have almost 2 times the number of people who want to actually vote or actually saying, you know what, I believe in the electoral process and I want to take part in it. And that's the South. So, for example, in Lagos sometimes only has 30 to 40% voter turnout, right? The South historically has had lower voter turnout than the North, because in the North you'll have children who might not be of age very excited to vote, and they'll queue and they'll wait there for hours. You'll have old, elderly men and women standing online for hours just to vote in the North. In the South, you'll see people playing football and enjoying and relaxing when they're supposed to be at the poll units. But for the first time, it seems, and we'll know for sure in a few days, if that passion to vote has genuinely seeped in. And if you want to vote, that means you want to take part in the political process. If you want to take part in the political process, it means you want to be a part of that nation. If you want to be a part of that nation, you want to see that nation work. That's
exactly. So that's why I understand when you say that 2% of the people who are against the elections are not, a significant, deterrence to elections, but the 2% have a pretty big influence.
Well, I said 2% of the people might be ready to take arms up against the government.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They're not gonna take arms in order to stop the participation in elections in the Southeast. They're planning to stay at home. Basically, they're planning not to take part in the elections. And it goes back to what you said. If they don't take part in the election, it means fundamentally they don't want to be part of that nation. That's the message that they're trying to send out, basically. And
hey, Alex, let me do this. Let me pass it to Niger. But anything else you'd like to share in closing?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I
know for a fact the Southeast is going to show up and show out for Peter Obi. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. That's going to affect his chances at the election.
You gotta remember
I said they're going to show up. They're going to show up to the polls.
I don't think they're going to show up.
Hey, Alex, that's why Alex, you got to remember also too that Pete Obi isn't really running as a regional or sectional candidate. He's basically been the youth have made him their champion. So it's in the youth cut across all 6 geopolitical zones, Abuja included. But anyway, it's all good. Thank you for your contribution. To Niger, what do you have for us, brother?
Yeah. The Southeast is definitely gonna come out and vote for Peter Obi. I don't think that's gonna be an issue. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Diana. Greetings to Ebube and the chat and the viewers. I guess this Ekpa guy was causing a bit of a problem in the Southeast. A senator candidate for Labour Party was killed yesterday, maybe 2 days now, depending on the time. Yeah, 2 days now, and was just killed, and with 5 of his colleagues. So the guy has been causing a bit of a problem. I don't know whether he is responsible for it, but there's a lot of tension in that region.
Well, let me just add something in. You got to remember that, what we do in Nigeria is we focus on the important people when bad things happen to important people. You got to remember that there are a lot of people who can't go back to their villages right now. There are people, and it's not being reported. During the height of insecurity, you had people that, were being displaced and deleted constantly. But what we do in Nigeria, unfortunately, is that we only care when it happens to a big man. But what you're saying happened to him has happened all over the country.
To be fair to the country, they complain
Let me just finish. So to just zero in on him as if that's just an anomaly. What we have in Nigeria is a situation where the security architecture of the nation hasn't grown with pace and lockstep with the growth of the nation. So now you have too few police, and the police that we do have are with VIPs or working as drivers for senators or holding umbrellas and purses and things of that nature. And the common man doesn't have the police, and the police that they do have is stopping them at roadblocks for 2050 naira. Do you get? So what we have in Nigeria is a security problem. Now, what we try to do is say, well, look at this person, look at this. And it's like, well, that's one person. And we're missing the bigger picture. We're just looking at a tree and we're not looking at the forest. So what happened to him isn't anything that's new. Right now, there's a sense of laxness in the military and police, and people feel that, you know what, if I've always had a grudge against somebody, if I wanted to do something to somebody, I can do it, and the police won't even do an investigation. They'll just say insurgents in the north, or unknown gunmen in the south, or kidnappers here, and they won't do any work. They'll just give it a title that they don't have to do any work, and then that's it. But we don't understand the full backstory. There's a couple situations like that that I've become aware of where the perpetrators have simply gotten away by doing something in an area that they believe is a high insecurity area, hoping that it won't be solved because they would merely just blame whatever happened to their rival or their enemy on insecurity. So that's really the bigger issue. But anyway, what do you have on topic for us, brother?
Yeah, I don't necessarily subscribe to your understanding of the situation. Nigerians do understand when ordinary people kill too.
Yeah, but let's focus on the topic. What do you have on the topic for us today, brother?
Projected to win the election. Can I say what I want to say?
Not too, Nigel. We got other people to come on. We're gonna be all night. Not tonight. What's on topic? Please.
But what am I? Well, okay. What do you want me to say?
I mean, who do you think is gonna win the election and why?
Okay. Who do I think is gonna win the election and why? One, I don't know who is gonna win, but I suspect that it might go to a second round, which is not very common because of the number of candidates that are competitive in this election. And that's basically it, really. The polls indicate that P2B is ahead in the polls, most of them anyway. There are some of them showing Tinubu and one of them showing Atiku. The trick is that even if P2B is ahead in the polls, the other candidates have infrastructure on the ground. They have party structure, so they have a way of getting out the vote better than one can argue that Peter Obi does. So it will account for some percentage. Like let's say Obi is ahead by 10%, that could account for 5% already, and that is if the poll is correct, because polls always have 4 plus or negative minus 4%. So it could go anyway. My suspicion is that it's likely to land in a situation whereby you have a runoff. And if you have a runoff, I suspect if it is P2B and Tinubu, it will favor P2B for the final outcome, because I believe Atiku will endorse P2B and maybe even Kwakwaso will endorse P2B. But if Tinubu has to win it, he has to win it first round. He has to win it.
Why do you say that?
Because he doesn't have a lot of room after the first round.
When you say he doesn't have room, what do you mean?
Because the other two candidates are out of the race, then, which is Atiku and Kwakwanso. And I suspect that Atiku definitely will be supporting Peter Obi. And Kwakwanso is a little bit tricky, but there's a chance that he too could back Peter Obi for the second round. And if that happens,
what is the difference between Atiku and Tinubu?
The difference between Atiku and Tinubu,
the runoff is between Atiku and Tinubu.
I think if it's Atiku and Tinubu, that's a tricky one. But I think, this in Tinubu might just win it.
What if it's between Atiku and Peter Obi? Who do you think Tinubu will endorse?
I think Tinubu is more likely to endorse Peter Obi. That will be a wild result.
This whole election is going to be crazy. I can't wait till Sunday. It's like a soap opera. I can't wait to just see it and have it done and understand it.
Not a lot of people anticipate Atiku making it to the second round because he has not been very vocal, and his party is divided. For 4 governors, one of the governors of his party actually endorsed Peter Obi, and maybe others might. in the next few days. One of the other one is endorsing APC. 5 governors out of the few governors that are remaining in PDP are not supporting.
Which 5?
I think,
which 5? The G5, or because in
yeah,
the G5, I think Shay is backing Tinubu. Wike, Yeson Wike is backing Tinubu. I think Ugwanye and the other guy are backing, I think, Atiku.
Governor
And
Autumn.
Tom is backing Peter Obi, right?
Yeah. Governor Autumn is backing Peter Obi. So it depends on how everything shakes out. And so far, Peter Obi has momentum, if you are looking at it, but the structure and the way Tinubu operates is very, very effective in the context of Nigeria. There's been a lot of things that happened in the last couple of weeks that indicates that clearly. The guy has sway, some kind of power that I don't fully understand. I think it's partly because he spent a long time cultivating his path to power. So you can see that he's openly disagreeing with the commander-in-chief, taking the commander-in-chief to court, his own party to court. It's crazy. And after you take your own president to court, you expect him to come and endorse you, and the president actually comes to endorse him. It's crazy. The whole thing is pure madness, really.
I think they're upset over the new Naira change. I think that's the main thing.
They are more upset for the new Naira than the people are upset for it. And last year,
you know what's crazy? When the university kids were out of school for what, 6, 7, 8 months, I didn't hear this many politicians make statements.
Not at all.
I didn't hear any of that. In fact, it's almost as if nobody cared.
They started going after him before the Naira even was changed, before the people started feeling the pain. Last year, December, they tried to arrest the CBN governor.
The thing is, some people say that, remember the consensus candidate that Muhammadu Buhari brought forth was Ahmed Lawan? You remember that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. That
So when he told the governors, hey, look, you guys have chosen your successors, let me choose my successor. And it was odd, but he chose Ahmed Lawan and said this should be PDP's consensus candidate. So Buhari made his choice, and then the governors were kind of like, I don't know about that. Let's have a primary. And then
Buhari viciously put it down.
And then somehow, that's why if you looked at, the primary, certain people didn't look happy. Certain people did look happy. But not everybody wanted a primary. Some people just wanted a consensus candidate. So if somebody wanted a consensus candidate, other people wanted a primary, and then the person's candidate who was the consensus candidate doesn't win at the primary, you can't expect that person to wholeheartedly campaign for the person that they didn't want to win. This person allegedly wanted someone else to get the ticket. He didn't get it. So do you think he's going to enthusiastically support that person like he would the person that he handpicked? I don't think so. Yeah,
it is clear that Buhari is not full-throatedly supporting Tinubu, and Tinubu has complained about that. Even during the campaign, he lost it once, and he was basically calling Buhari out, that there are some people trying to sabotage his campaign.
Was that when he was in Ibadan, or?
Yeah, I think it was when he was in Ibadan. And before that, there was a time he was on stage, he was just calling on Buhari repeatedly. Buhari, because he knows Buhari is not on his side. It's one of those desperate situations that, personally, if you look at the way things has gone in the last couple of days, you should even think Tinubu should not even come second. He should come third, because he was quite rude to the commander-in-chief, that's the president himself. And the president does have support in the north. He's not like a useless man. It's like Obama, one guy just bullying Obama left and right. How do you think black voters have to go and vote for that guy right at that election after he was just bullying Obama? You can see that people will push back. He will, and I believe Tinubu will lose some votes just for that alone. And so, if that is true, if that my guess is true, then we might be in for a shocking weekend, that the people of the north may not back Tinubu at all. But then again, Tinubu's machine might be just too formidable. You know, you can't predict that guy. You can't predict what that guy is capable of doing. And one of the most disturbing things I'm hearing on the ground sometimes is that some people say that, if Tinubu wins, there's likely to be a coup in the country because some people don't want him there. He is just too powerful, and he's going to reshape the Nigeria in his own image, and that is something a lot of people will not put up with. And if you notice, this is the same problem Abiola had. Abiola was a very rich man, powerful guy, connected and everything, friends with the top. And when it came to handing over to him, they refused. Because they know by the time that guy is done with his 8 years, the Nigeria will be in its own image. And that's what I fear, that maybe some of them are afraid. This is why you see some of the struggle at the top in Nigeria, that they're afraid of Tinubu. And his wife is crazy. His wife is very, very tribal and very, very aggressive. So they might feel like, this is too much. That's my suspicion, but it may not be true because the person may just be mounting up because he is a Obi supporter. And I asked him, if Obi wins, what happens? He said nothing. But somehow P2B is the one that will be acceptable. When just yesterday they are talking about the Igbo being from Biafra. So the whole election, I think everybody should just be have their popcorns and just watch, because this is going to be, it could go any way. So I can't sit here and tell you this is the way it's going to go. I don't know.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting.
It's definitely going to be interesting. This is what we'll do. We'll go ahead and close out. So, Ebube, I have to get your. What do you project? What do you predict? Election Sunday morning.
For me,
who's going to be crowned the new leader of Niger?
You know what's crazy? For some strange reason, right? Like, I have my personal choice of who I'd like to see, but for some strange reason, I just feel like Atiku is going to be announced the winner.
Well, that's what I've been saying. That's what I said.
I can't explain why, but
it's going to be Atiku.
But the thing is, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Tinubu's announced the winner. He comes from the ruling party. He's a lifelong politician. He has resources. I wouldn't be surprised if by Monday we're calling Tinubu the president. I wouldn't be surprised if P2B wins it. I wouldn't be surprised also, because P2B, he has people going crazy over him on the internet. It's yet to be seen if the people on these polls and on the internet are going to show up in person and make it happen, and if there's not going to be any funny business. Lastly, if Atiku wins, I'll be like, okay, that makes sense. You know, he comes from the region with the greatest voting bloc. If Kwankwaso wins, I would actually truly be surprised, because he needs, in my opinion, as a VP, a strong Southern candidate that can independently pull states on their own. Like Kwankwaso with Osibanjo, even though he's already been vice president, but something like that would be a good mix. Someone from the South, or even Kwankwaso with P2B, even though P2B wouldn't agree to be vice president. Someone like that the South already trusts and could even potentially be a president would be a good person for Kwankwaso. I don't know if he has that combination, so I'd be surprised if I saw him win. So out of the 4, I wouldn't be surprised at 3. And then of the 3, for some reason, I think that Atiku Abubakar might just take the presidency.
Well, hey guys, we'll find out. You know, we're gonna do a live stream. We're gonna live stream the election. You know, on Saturday. So, you know, we'll find out here in about 36 hours.
Very soon.
Yeah, very soon. So, hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Oh, guys, make sure you go and subscribe to Ebube's YouTube page, Up Close to Center. Please go and subscribe to his page. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.